Hello everyone, my name is Francesca. I'm an Italian living in London, and here I talk about financial independence, freedom, business, investing, career, and everything else related to that. So today I wanted to touch on financial independence, retire early, or the FIRE movement. Now, if you've never heard of this, well then I'm about to change your life. But I assume that if you're on this channel and you're interested in finance, then there is a high likelihood that you've heard of this term before. So I actually wanted to talk about my personal plan in order to reach financial independence. Now, I was introduced to this concept kind of vicariously, let's say, through reading the 4-Hour Workweek by Timothy Ferriss. That was a couple years ago, and it's a book that deeply changed my view of career and what it means to even be retired, because the whole concept that Timothy argues is that you don't actually have to wait until you are 65 to be retired and never having to work again, but actually he sees retirement as something to be, let's say, diluted during one's working life. So you can actually take mini retirement and you don't have to trade your time for your money. But this is for another time. I'm happy to do like a review of that book if that could be interesting. But ever since being introduced to that concept through that book, I've come now to have my own steps or like plan to reach financial independence, and I want to share that with you. So, keep on watching. The first thing that we need to discuss is we need to understand what FIRE means to us. So, financial independence can mean different things to different people. That could be, for example, does that mean working part time? Does that mean retiring and never having to work again, so pure FIRE, let's say? Or does that mean having as much saved aside as necessary in order to live, right, for 1 year, let's say, without having to work 9 to 5? So establishing this will define how much money you actually need to have invested in order to achieve your FIRE number, as they say, so the number that will allow you to reach that goal that you have set for yourself. So the usual, go-to recommendation is to have 25 times your annual living expenses saved and actually invested, not only saved, sorry, but invested in the stock market, so that then you are free to withdraw 4% out of that just from the capital gains, without touching the actual money that you have deposited and invested. However, for me personally, I'm lucky enough to really be enjoying what I'm doing. So I'm 25 now, and I'm in my prime time when it comes to my professional life, right? So I really like my job. So my plan is not to leave it anytime soon, really. So I'm less focused on the, kind of the pure FIRE that we were talking about. So having enough money saved that you don't have to ever work in again. But it's more for me now a matter of not being dependent solely on my 9 to 5 for my living expenses. So it's more kind of having a soft FIRE, or like a coast FIRE, as some people refer to it. So yes, basically the first step is then, if you want to apply that for yourself, understand what that means for you. And a very cool exercise that I've started doing recently is imagine what an ideal day in the life of you as a retired person would look like. So for me, that's definitely a mixture of working on projects that I love, that I'm passionate about, with a team of people as well that I respect and that are like-minded, so feeling productive, energized, but then also having time to take care of myself. So for things like having a walk, reading a good book, having a good meal, and all of these things. So, but it definitely does not look like, spending my days on a beach, like doing nothing, right? Because that would be so boring, at least for me. So I know what my ideal retirement looks like, and it doesn't mean not working, because I know that working is something that I really enjoy, but it's more about not being reliant of one source of income and one type of employment, if that makes sense. So this is my first step. Then the other key part of my plan to financial independence is decreasing expenses, but also especially knowing where my money goes. So this does not mean not enjoying life or like not being able to have fun, and does not mean cutting or unnecessary expenses, but it does mean being conscious with how and on what I spend my money, and making sure that every expense is justified and that I'm convinced about it. I'm convinced of its usefulness, if that makes sense. So what I started doing is actually having a wish list of things that I want to buy, and what I will do is, I would add this item to my wish list with like a picture and how much it costs, and then I would just leave it there for at least a month. So I don't allow myself to buy that item until at least a month has passed from when I first, come up with the desire to buy it. And then what I found out is that 9 times out of 10, the 4 weeks have passed and I either completely forget about this, or I look back and I'm like, I don't actually want this thing anymore. Sometimes it happens that 4 weeks have passed and I still want the item, and then by all means I go out and buy it. But by doing this, I make sure that these are things that I want, and it's not just kind of like a spur of the moment kind of desire that then fades away. And then one other thing that I do is having a budget tracker. So every expense, everything that I buy is tracked. And now it's become a habit, so I really don't even have to think about it. So as soon as you are able to turn that into a habit, it really makes a big difference. For example, after a month, being able to see all the things that you've spent money on, and it really helps you kind of making a diagnosis of where you spend most money on and where you can maybe cut back. Then another thing is, a crucial element of reaching financial independence is to increase income. And that means also increasing the sources of income. Now, this is maybe the most challenging one because it requires a lot of work, and the results are not going to show up soon, right? So it takes a lot of time to build solid foundations, and this can take different shapes as well, right? Because that could be intended as having side hustles. So I don't know, you could have like a gig on Fiverr, for example, or I guess freelance. You could babysit when lockdown is lifted and we can actually we're actually allowed to do these sort of things. It could be babysitting. It could be also having the dividends that you earn. I mean, of course you would need to have a lot of money invested in order to have like sizable dividends, but that's definitely also money that you're not actively working for, but that passively kind of find their way to you, right? So I'm actually now working on different ways in which I can leverage, I can find different income sources, but it's definitely like one area that I'm intently focusing on right now. And then another important step, towards financial independence is getting financially savvy. Now, what that means is really getting curious about finances, what that means, how you can leverage the systems, different platforms that are there, maybe, choosing a platform that has low fees or no fees at all, as opposed to maybe going with the easier choice, like the more mainstream choice, but then having to pay like a lot of fees, right? And so that would mean, what I mean by that is just generally learning more about finances, learning more about investing, and that will enable you and me. And I'm already in this journey, and that this YouTube channel is also part of my personal journey into financial literacy. So being financially literate enables you to then make informed decisions, and it empowers you to know that you are doing something for your own good, if that makes sense, right? So being financially literate, it's another thing that fits within the plan for financial independence. Then another thing is actually getting out of debt. Now, it's something that I wanted to include because I think that generally it's an important step, for everyone that wants to reach financial independence, as having a safety net, right? So like an emergency fund set aside. So these two go hand in hand. But now when it comes to my specific situation, I'm lucky enough that I only have, student finance loans from my bachelor's degree that I am repaying. But actually the conditions for repayment for that one are so good that I'm not going to, kind of pay it off upfront, but rather I'm just paying, my monthly repayments that I make sure to pay those. And actually, the interest rates are so quite low that it's actually more beneficial to me to invest my money and then, make a higher return from the money invested and just keep paying the monthly payments without, kind of having to repay the whole amount up front. But then of course, you have to assess your own situation. I think that if the interest rate is, kind of 4% or less, then it makes sense to follow the same strategy. But then if it's anything higher, then maybe it's best to try and repay that as quick as possible and then focusing on investing. But then again, it's up to you. You have to make a decision, but it's just something definitely to consider if you want to reach financial independence. And finally, it's learning not to panic and learning to be comfortable with swings, right, in the stock market, and kind of seeing also the returns going red, right? So actually losing money sometimes from the stock market, just because. And this kind of fits into my previous point on financial savviness and financial literacy, because the moment you understand that these swings, these ups and downs, are all part of the bigger scheme, right, the bigger game that it is investing into the stock market, then the more comfortable you will be with these swings. Like, you come to see them as being normal, being part of the game, and even you'll see them as a possibility. You see them as a chance to make a bargain, basically, right? Because you'll be able to buy stocks at a cheaper price, knowing that in due time the market will go up again, and so you will actually be making a profit out of this. Now, hopefully this video helped you. This is just one, kind of an insight into my plan to reach financial independence and what that means for me and all the different elements that I'm focusing on in my journey. I'm sure that it will change as I grow older and my financial situation changes. I might have some big expenses coming up that will eat into my my savings, and so I might have to reprioritize or rebalance my priorities. But this is my situation as it stands now, and I would be very happy to hear what you think about this. Like, do you plan to reach FIRE? What does FIRE mean to you? Does that mean really retiring and not having to ever again work, or does it mean to have a soft FIRE, like a coast FIRE, as we were saying? And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.